Camilla and Princess Catherine enemies. A lot of reports say that the two most important women in the British royal family have a long-lasting feud.
It wasn't announced. No headlines. No public tension. But behind palace walls, something irreversible has begun. A quiet shift, so subtle it escaped even the royal press. Yet those closest to crown say it's the most decisive power move in decades. Camilla, once crowned queen, is being quietly sidelined while Kate Middleton rises in silence, embraced not by title, but by legacy. The question now isn't if the monarchy is changing. It's this: has the real queen already claimed her throne without anyone noticing? The real royal rivalry begins. The tension between Queen Camilla and Catherine, Princess of Wales, didn't begin with crowns or court ceremonies. It began in the quiet corners of the palace, where glances held more weight than words. When Prince William first introduced Kate Middleton to the family, it wasn't the formalities that set the tone. It was Camilla's reaction. And that moment said everything. To some in the royal circle, Kate was just another passing girlfriend. Pleasant, polite, and like so many before her, expected to vanish quietly. That was certainly how Camilla saw it. A fleeting chapter, a name soon forgotten. But Kate didn't vanish. She stayed. She adapted, and she bloomed. With each public appearance, her confidence grew, her presence steadied, and the people fell quietly, wholeheartedly in love with her. And as Kate's star rose, so too did a quiet discomfort. Their paths to royalty were strikingly different, almost opposites. Camilla had clawed her way to acceptance, enduring decades of whispers, headlines, and the ghost of Diana always hovering nearby. Her story was one of survival, slow, painful redemption in a world that never truly forgave. Kate's was a story of grace. No scandals, no shadows, just poise, patience, and a rare ability to walk into one of the world's most scrutinized families and somehow make it look effortless. For a public still grieving Diana, she wasn't just welcome, she was hope. And the contrast was brutal. While Camilla endured boos and tabloid cruelty, Kate was hailed as the people's Princess 2.0, elegant, modern, untarnished. The press that once hounded Camilla now fawned over Kate, and the comparison wasn't just cruel, it was constant. But their rivalry wasn't born from headlines alone. It came from something deeper. The realization that each woman represented a different future for crown. Camilla stood for tradition, resilient, and the belief that even flawed figures could earn their place. Kate stood for a clean slate, fresh energy, youthful charm, and a monarchy reborn without its ghosts. And as the palace walls absorbed the quiet tension between them, one question lingered in the air. Was there ever room for both queens in the same royal future? Camilla's uphill battle for acceptance. To truly grasp the weight Queen Camilla carries, you have to revisit a time when she was revered, but reviled. Long before she wore the crown, Camilla was Britain's most hated woman, a walking symbol of heartbreak, blamed relentlessly for the collapse of Charles and Diana's fairy tale marriage. Her appearances at public events weren't greeted with polite applause, but with fury, boos, jeers, even threats. At times, royal protection officers feared for her safety. She was followed not just by paparazzi, but by the shadow of Diana's grief-stricken admirers. And the rage wasn't fleeting. It burned for years. Every step she took in public was measured, every gesture picked apart. She lived under siege. Imagine waking up each day knowing that your face, your name, your existence stirred anger in the very people you would one day hope to serve. The toll wasn't just physical. It was emotional, suffocating. Yet through it all, Camilla stood by Charles, quietly, loyally, while he too struggled to rebuild his image after Diana's death. Even after their marriage in 2005, Camilla's acceptance came wrapped in caution. She wasn't granted the title Princess of Wales that belonged eternally to Diana in the hearts of the British people. Instead, she wore the more reserved title, Duchess of Cornwall, a compromise, a reminder that while she had Charles, she had not truly won the public. It wasn't until Queen Elizabeth II personally endorsed her future as Queen Consort that a corner seemed to turn. But even then, the public's approval felt more like resignation than celebration. Yes, the hatred had softened, but the warmth, that never fully arrived. Camilla had clawed her way to acceptance through resilience, discretion, and unwavering duty. But there's a difference between earning admiration and inspiring it naturally. And that difference became painfully clear every time Kate entered a room. Because while Camilla fought for every ounce of respect, Kate received it without asking. Effortless grace, instant charm. A future queen who didn't need to survive decades of public exile to be adored. She simply was. And behind palace walls, the irony hung thick in the air. The woman who gave up everything to be part of the monarchy was being eclipsed by someone who, in the public's eyes, had given up nothing at all. Kate's effortless rise to royal stardom. While Camilla was quietly battling decades of skepticism, clinging to every hard-earned nod of public approval, Kate Middleton was experiencing something else entirely, a rise that felt almost magical. From the moment she stepped into the royal spotlight, it was clear Kate didn't just belong. She glowed. There's no royal training for what she had. No etiquette class can teach it. It wasn't learned or practiced. It was innate, that rare, unspoken quality that makes someone captivating before they even say a word. A future queen with presence, charm, and grace that felt effortless. And the numbers? They didn't whisper, they shouted. In just a few years, economists coined the term the Kate Middleton effect. Her influence wasn't symbolic, it was economic. Over £1 billion surged into the British fashion industry, simply because Kate wore a coat, carried a clutch, or stepped out in a new pair of shoes. Designers who once dreamed of royalty now built entire lines around her image. But it wasn't just clothes. It was the way she wore them, with ease, with warmth, with something that made her feel at once royal and reachable. She could kneel beside a frightened child in a cancer ward and make them smile. Hours later, she could glide into a glittering state banquet and command the room. Then the next morning, she'd be on a football pitch laughing with teenagers like an old friend. She wasn't pretending. That was the magic. She simply was. Royal commentators, usually cautious with praise, broke form. They called her the crown's greatest asset, the new jewel, and they meant it, because for the first time since Diana's untimely death, the public felt something they hadn't in years. Hope, not nostalgia, not controversy, but a sense that maybe, just maybe, the future of the monarchy could be bright again. And the most astonishing part, she made it look easy. There were no stumbles, no rehabilitation arcs, no scandals to clean up. Kate didn't need to win the public over. She had them from the start. Her middle-class background wasn't seen as a flaw, but a bridge. She reminded the people that the crown didn't have to be cold. But behind palace walls, this effortless rise came with its own kind of quiet tension. While Camilla still carefully navigated public events, scanning faces for signs of acceptance, Kate was simply celebrated. No hesitancy, no second guesses, just joy. Her engagements made headlines. Her charities drew massive attention. Mental health, early childhood development, causes that once struggled for air now soared. Meanwhile, Camilla's deeply personal work on literacy, domestic violence, and the unsung corners of British life remained in the shadows, not because it mattered less, but because the spotlight had already chosen its favorite. And to her credit, Kate never tried to outshine. She honored the hierarchy. She played her part with dignity and grace. But charisma has no protocol. Charm doesn't wait for permission. And as much as Camilla had earned her place, Kate's presence made one thing painfully clear. Some roles are fought for. Others are simply lived. Behind palace doors, the power shift. To the public, everything looked harmonious. Smiles at appearances, neatly coordinated calendars, polite warmth at royal gatherings. But behind palace walls, that calm exterior masked a growing storm. One defined not by scandal, but by silent, strategic shifts in power. According to palace insiders, the unity portrayed in public was carefully curated. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere had grown tense, calculated smiles concealing real friction. It began subtly. Quiet protocol changes, small redirections. Camilla, long respected as a senior royal woman, had once overseen the fine details of royal events, guest lists, ceremonial planning, even scheduling. But increasingly, Decisions were being routed through William and Kate's office. The chain of command was shifting, not loudly but unmistakably. Staff began to whisper. Requests once sent to Camilla's private secretary were now landing on Kate's desk. Media briefings started spotlighting Kate's engagements while Camilla's slipped into the background. It was as if the crown itself was leaning, gently but unmistakably, toward the future. Then came the moment that made the shift impossible to ignore. Camilla had spent months preparing a charity gala for one of her patronages. But when the press coverage landed, it was Kate who captured the headlines. Her presence, her words, her poise, everything stole the spotlight. Camilla was barely mentioned. Insiders say she was quietly livid, not because Kate stole anything, but because her team had simply outperformed. And it wasn't just public life that felt the strain. Even private dinners began to require strategic seating. Group photos were carefully staged. Staff loyalty split into two camps, those loyal to Camilla's long-fought position, and those magnetized by Kate's rising influence. Then, there were the Middletons, once kept respectfully outside royal operations. Kate's family now appeared more frequently at family gatherings, even at official functions. For Camilla, who had fought for decades to be accepted, it must have felt like a cruel twist. She had finally been let in, only to watch another family welcomed with open arms. But the deepest shift of all wasn't between the women. It was between father and son. William was no longer simply the dutiful heir. He was shaping a monarchy in his own image, not one tethered to rules of the past, but one that looked forward. And at the center of that vision wasn't just tradition, it was Kate. Not just a wife, not just support, his partner, his co-leader, his queen-in-waiting, in spirit and increasingly in power. As the palace adjusted to this quiet but seismic shift, a new question began to rise. Was this the dawn of a modern royal era, or the beginning of a royal reckoning? The unspoken competition, the quiet competition between Queen Camilla and Catherine, Princess of Wales, never needed to be spoken. It played out in full view. Every shared appearance, every smile, every photo op became part of an unspoken duel. They walked side by side, but the public saw something else, a struggle for legacy, loyalty, and presence. And in the court of public opinion, the outcome was clear. Kate's appearances sparked headlines, social media surges, and fashion frenzy. Coat she wore could crash a brand's website. Her clutches sold out in minutes. Camilla, though elegant, never ignited the same excitement. The public respected her, but they adored Kate. Then, in early 2024, everything changed. Kate's cancer diagnosis shattered the illusion of royal invincibility. For the first time, the seemingly untouchable princess became vulnerable, and the world responded. Messages flooded in. Prayers were whispered. She wasn't just admired anymore. She was loved. Yet inside the palace, something unexpected happened. Kate's duties weren't reassigned. Camilla didn't step forward. The schedule slowed and the spotlight dimmed, as if the monarchy itself was waiting for Kate. Camilla carried on, steady and present, but she never stepped into Kate's place, because no one could. And when Kate finally returned, pale but poised, the nation exhaled. Her appearance wasn't just news. It was a celebration. People didn't line the streets for a princess. They came for someone they felt. The contrast with Camilla was undeniable. Camilla had survived her own storms, but Kate's return revealed a deeper truth. This wasn't about popularity. It was about connection. Kate didn't hold a position. She held the public's heart. Camilla, to her credit, remained gracious. She offered support during Kate's illness, privately and publicly, but she never tried to assume Kate's role. And perhaps even she understood, Kate's role wasn't a duty. It was a presence, a force. And if any doubt lingered, Prince William made it vanish. During the darkest days, he didn't widen the royal circle. He didn't turn to Camilla. He turned inward, protecting Kate and their children. His focus was clear, his loyalty unshaken. And in that silence, one truth stood tall. In William's monarchy, the heart of the royal family isn't defined by rank. It's defined by Catherine. Signs of the shift. By the end of 2024, the shift inside the royal family was no longer subtle. What began as quiet tweaks, minor protocol changes, shifts in media tone, had become clear realignments of power and influence. And the clearest sign? Prince William. No longer the dutiful son following behind, William had stepped forward, confident, strategic, and unmistakably in command. And at every turn, he made one thing clear. His vision for the monarchy wasn't his alone. It was shared with Kate. In speeches, I became we. And that we wasn't the royal institution. It was him and Catherine, equal partners in duty, image, and legacy. A quiet but powerful break from tradition. Inside the palace, this wasn't just symbolism. Though Camilla retained formal rank at major events, real influence had shifted. Key decisions, creative direction, and media strategy increasingly came from William and Kate's team. Their preferences set the tone. Their voices carried weight. And nowhere was the difference more visible than in media strategy. Camilla's approach remained conventional, careful and dignified. Kate's team, however, understood the modern stage. From social media to press engagement, their messaging was fast, focused, and effective. Royal tours highlighted the divide. When William and Kate traveled abroad, their presence was electric. Crowds swelled. Coverage exploded. Diplomacy met emotion. Planning was precise. Branding intentional. And the results? Undeniable. Charles and Camilla's tours, though graceful, lacked that spark. They upheld tradition while William and Kate redefined it. And the public noticed. Polls show where trust and hope truly lived. Approval ratings leaned heavily toward William and Kate, not just for their popularity, but for what they represented. A monarchy evolving in step with its people. This generational divide wasn't about age. It was about energy, values, and connection. Charles and Camilla offered continuity. William and Kate offered evolution. And quietly, across palace corridors and public sentiment alike, one truth had begun to echo louder than ever. The crown may rest on Charles's head, but the future already belongs to William and Kate, the quiet revolution. In the end, what emerged from years of quiet rivalry and shifting palace dynamics wasn't a grand confrontation. There were no shouted words in gilded halls, no scandalous headlines or explosive resignations. The final act of this royal power play unfolded not with drama, but with quiet inevitability. It was a revolution of gravity, one so gradual, so elegantly understated, that few noticed it happening until it was already done. Without ever declaring it, the royal center of influence had shifted, not in title, not in protocol, but in presence, in purpose, in the hearts of the people, and in the structure of the institution itself. Camilla, after decades of enduring, waiting, and proving, had finally arrived at the seat of power. She wore the crown, stood beside the king, and performed her duties with grace. But somewhere along the journey, she had lost the spotlight, not by fault, not by scandal, but by timing, because by the time Camilla had reached the heart of the monarchy, the heart had quietly moved. Kate hadn't taken Camilla's place. She hadn't schemed, competed, or wrestled power away. She had simply become essential, and in doing so, she had reshaped what that place even meant. Camilla stood in the ceremonial center, but Kate had become the emotional one, and that was the true shift. For Prince William, it wasn't just fortune, it was strategy. He hadn't waited to be crowned before leading. He laid the groundwork in real time, building his vision, nurturing his public connection, and elevating Kate not as his consort, but as his partner, his equal. The monarchy he would one day inherit had already begun transforming into the monarchy he intended to lead. But it was Kate's rise that stood as the quiet masterpiece of this transformation. There was no calculation in her ascent, no ambition laced in her steps. She didn't need to outshine anyone. She simply shone, by being constant, by being kind, by showing up again and again with sincerity, empathy, and grace. And the British public, they saw it. They didn't need to be told where the monarchy was heading. They felt it in the way Kate spoke to children, in the way she honored tradition without becoming trapped by it, in the way she carried the crown's weight without ever seeming burdened by it. Without casting a single vote, they voted. Every time they showed up, tuned in, cheered, or cared, They weren't just choosing a princess. They were choosing a future. And in that quiet choice, the fate of the monarchy was sealed. Not with royal decree, but with something far more enduring. Trust, the future crown. As we look ahead to the future of the British monarchy, one truth becomes clear. When Prince William ascends the throne, he won't be stepping into the same institution his father inherited, because the transformation has already begun, quietly, steadily, under his and Catherine's hands. This wasn't a revolution of rebellion. It was a revolution of refinement. Camilla's legacy, when history writes it, will likely be viewed as transitional. She offered Charles stability, weathered decades of public scorn, and helped reestablish a sense of order during a deeply fractured time. She earned her place through endurance, but she won't be remembered as a figure who reshaped the monarchy's path. That title belongs to someone else. Catherine's legacy is still unfolding, but the signs are unmistakable. She has redefined what it means to be royal in the modern world, balancing dignity with approachability, tradition with warmth. She hasn't just served the crown. She's given it new life, new relevance, new grace. The rivalry between Camilla and Kate, never spoken aloud but always felt, ended up doing something remarkable. It forced evolution. It compelled both women to rise. And in doing so, it pushed the monarchy to keep pace with the people it's meant to serve. Because in today's world, crowns may still be inherited, but loyalty is earned, respect is earned, love is earned, and Kate has earned it all by simply being herself. The shift is complete now, not with ceremony or scandal, but with certainty. Camilla may wear the crown today, but Catherine commands a future. The monarchy has been reshaped, not by decree, but by example. And it all happened before our very eyes, hidden beneath royal waves and woven into fabric of public affection. So now, the question isn't who won, but what comes next. Because the story of the monarchy is far from over. And if you felt the change, if you've watched Kate's quiet rise and wonder what it all means, you're not alone. So tell me, have you noticed a shift? The difference in how the world sees Catherine compared to Camilla? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take on this silent royal revolution. And if this deep dive into the palace's untold dynamics intrigued you, hit that like button and subscribe, because there's so much more hiding behind those palace doors. And I'll be right here to uncover every secret. Until next time, keep watching the royals, because sometimes the stories they don't tell us are the ones that change everything.